Good morning, sir. Yeah.
Okay. Today I will talk about the future of the oil and gas industry, as well as the challenges for that future. Because most of the people saying that the oil and gas has no future, which is not true. The oil and gas still has a good future, as a good source of energy, and it will remain a good source of energy. So I'll talk about the challenges and the future of the oil and gas as a source of energy in this 1 hour lecture. And I take the opportunity to thank the AAPG and UPES for inviting me. And I also thank all the student chapter for that AAPG to do this nice event, the Crust'21. So I wish them and wish you all the best. And I hope it will be a successful event. My name is, as you see here, is Hussain Ahmed. I got a master degree, a PhD as well, bachelor, all in petroleum engineering. My bachelor in petroleum, my MSc in production engineering, petroleum production, my PhD in reservoir engineering. I have both academic and industrial experience. So I used to work with BP, British Petroleum. I used to work with SOC, South Oil Company in Iraq. Also, I work in Aberdeen, as well as in ADCO, Abu Dhabi, in the oil industry, as well as in the universities of Salford, Hurriyat, Teesside, and very recently in the American University of Sharjah in the Emirates. So I mix both the academia with industry. And I have more than 36 years by now, experience of 38 actually. I've been rewarded many times, but my best reward was from Her Majesty the Queen. I met Her Majesty in 2006, April, and she gave me the award of MBE, Member of British Empire, which is something an honor for me to meet Her Majesty and to get that award from her. Something is very useful, very good actually. That's me, and I will talk now about the. Sorry about this noise. I will talk about the agenda I have. And in the agenda I have, you hear me, don't you? All of you, you hear me?
Yes,
you hear me?
Yes, sir.
And you see the slide? You see the slide?
We can see the slide.
Okay. So I will talk about the inside of the oil and gas industry. What is it? What are the major areas for production or accumulation of oil and gas? I will talk about the new discoveries for oil and gas fields, because it has a link with the future. What kind of job opportunities available for the graduates of petroleum engineering? Do they have future? Can they get a job? I will mention that. And what kind of research nowadays is needed? I will cover the technical, the financial, environmental issues that are facing the regional and also the international, actually, petroleum industry in this general, in this case. The oil and gas industry is an integrated industry. It's very much connected industry. From first steps to the final steps. So, for example, you say, I am discovering oil in a certain formation, in a certain oil field. The moment you discover it and you start drilling for it and producing it until you finish with the exporting or sale. All these stages are connected. So therefore, it is very much an integrated industry. It's a big industry, wealthy industry as well. And all the activities you do are connected. From the moment you drill, you complete the well and you start producing it, do the separation, you separate oil from gas. The oil will go to the market as oil sale. The gas will go to the gas market. And sometime in a certain stage of the life of the field you discover, you do some activities to increase productivity, such as what we call them EOR, water injection, gas injection, or the IOR, increasing the oil recovery using pumps or using gas lift. So remember, the oil industry is very much connected from the moment you get the oil from the rocks until you put the oil inside the refinery and you get the gasoline and gas oil out of it. It's one chain, I can say. And that's the beauty of it. Quite beautiful in that term. So does it have a future? The answer is yes, it has a future. People talk about renewable energy, people talk about solar energy, people talking about wind energy, hydrogen energy. Yes, let them talk, continue talking. But these energies will never ever replace the entire of the oil and gas industry. Maybe take a little portion of it. And this is something you need to keep in mind. So I will remind you about some terms which is maybe you are familiar with, or I'm sure you are familiar with it, about the gas fields, and we have so many gas fields around the world nowadays. Gas field is very important nowadays. Most of the gas market, I can say, is on demand most of the time because they think that it is cleaner for the environment and therefore it has a good future. As well as the oil will remain important as a source of energy, as well as a feedstock for the industry, refineries, petrochemicals, plastic industry, paint industry. They need the oil as well for as a fuel, as a source of energy, and also as a feedstock. Usually, this oil could be gotten into onshore in the land or offshore. As you have in India, I think you have Mumbai Bay, and offshore you have something offshore near Chennai. You have offshore fields, gas and oil, and therefore uh, the oil sometimes could be onshore and sometimes could be offshore, depending on the way you discover it or you're looking for it. And the industry has upstream and downstream. I'm sure you know that because most of you petroleum engineering. Upstream, if I'm dealing with the reservoir drilling, water injection, EORs, these are upstream. And downstream, when I bring the oil to the refinery to get something out of it. I'm sorry about the noise. I should notice that. Okay. And in the oil and gas industry, we have so many activities. These could include exploration, drilling and completion. So all these are, I am just not talking about the future yet of the oil, but I'm telling you that it's difficult, really difficult to get rid of the oil industry. So it has a future. Whatever they say about the new energy, we cannot forget the importance of oil and gas as an important source of energy. And to be a petroleum engineer, or you work in the oil and gas industry, these are the areas and these are the region which you could cover it. So you could be in the exploration, you could be in the drilling sector, in the completion department, in the reservoir, enhanced oil, enhanced oil recovery, production, transportation, refineries, quality control. All these are sections belonging to the petroleum operation, which is maybe when you graduate from university, you could be ending in one of them. You could be a production engineer one day, you could be reservoir engineer, or you could work in maybe a refinery as where they can take you. So you have a future as a person. As a person, you have future. And as industry, it has a future. And therefore, it is a good choice to take it in our life. Why it has a future? Why it has a future? It has a future because we have a huge amount of oil and gas around the world. We have plenty amount of it. More than 1.2 to 1.4 trillion of barrels of oil are there. So actually this number should be 1.4. The trillions barrels of oil is available. We're not finished. So we have it. It has a future for the market. Also, it's a very important source of energy, and we will need it anyway in our life. So the reserve is available, and therefore it would be a good resource for our industry, for our energy sources in the future. And without energy, we cannot actually continue our life. So you see in India, there is power plants to produce electricity. They are using fuel, gas, and oil to produce the power, transportation, the flights, all these airplanes flying from between cities. They need the kerosene or ATK, which is again fuel coming from crude oil. So it is an important part in our daily life. We need it. We cannot say, oh, oil is finished. Oil didn't finish at all. And therefore, this is something you need to be keep in mind. The gas now is coming important. The trend of the gas reserves coming important, growing actually. If you are students listening to me and you say, I love to get a job in the oil and gas industry, then maybe my advice to you, try to have more courses around gas engineering. Gas engineering on demand now. Our gas engineer is on demand. So he has a future. As well as the exploration of oil and gas are growing. The other things is good in the oil and gas industry is using the technology. I advise you as a student is to pay more attention for the new, for the innovation, new ideas, use the technology, IT and computerize is very much important nowadays for that purpose. I was teaching yesterday, actually. I was teaching yesterday on well completion on a Zoom. I gave a lecture on Zoom on well completion. And part of well completion called smart or intelligent well completion, which is using the new technology in producing and developing the oil wells and the oil field. Nowadays, we have something called intelligent well, and we have intelligent oil fields. And I'm sure some of you heard about that. I encourage you to think about developing and using a modern technology in the oil industry that will make continuation, and that will give you better future and give the oil industry also better future. Again, if you are a student and you want to do MSc in the future, try to do MSc mixing technology in the oil and gas industry. Smart fields or intelligent industry will be recommended for the future as well. Plenty of oil is available. Huge amount of oil is available around the world. Maybe don't have much oil reserve in India, but I'm sure that there's plenty oil in the Middle East, around Saudi Arabia, Iraq, Iran, Kuwait, and so on. And they are still producing, and they need years and years to produce. So the oil and gas industry has a future, at least for the coming, at minimum for the coming 50 years. We are in 2020, we talk about 2070 or 2080. Plenty time. You can get a job and you are retired then after that, and the oil is still there. So it has a future. And that's my lecture about the future of the oil and gas and the challenges. Of course, in future to continue, you have to have technology, a better understanding for geology, and you are AAPG, and geology is important for you. So the more the high technology use will give you a chance for more discoveries. The more the discoveries of oil fields, the more the chance for you to remain in the market. And therefore we have a reserve. We have a reserve. Most of the country, they have some oil somewhere in their land, offshore or onshore. The most one they use very much is the proved one. That's a proved reserve. And that amount of oil, which is we are sure about it, be developed or undeveloped sometime, but we are sure there is an oil there. I think in India, you know, the Assam province, and Assam is still rich with oil. You have probable reserves, you have possible unrecovered sometime. But all these are reserves, which we name them in books as the oil in place. Oil in place. So if somebody asks you, do you have oil in place? The answer is yes, we have. The world has a plenty amount of oil in place. And therefore, you have a future for job, a future for energy, a future for the industry of the oil and gas. The uncertainty of any reserve, it could be minimized, and you'll be very certain if you have more well data, geology data, and reservoir data. And that will assure you about the future of oil and gas industry. my seminar is about the future. So I've talked very much about the future. So how can I make sure that we have good future about oil and gas? The answer, collect data, well data, logging, core analysis, well test, whatever you can do in the field. Understand the geology of your reservoir, petroleum geology of it. Understand the properties of your reservoir, such as porosity, permeability, thickness, whatever you name it. The more the data you have will give you a good understanding for how much reserve, which has a connection with the future. The more the reserve you have, that means you have future in the oil and gas industry. Like, remember this. And the answer will have future. Some of the challenges for us and for the oil industry is the fluctuation of the oil price. Sometimes say, oh, the oil price is down or up, never stable. The answer is yes. You remember in 2020, around March or April, almost a year ago, if you are following the news, the oil price went down, very low price. And India, your country, make a good benefit of that by buying a huge amount of oil because the price is good. So they have the storage tanks everywhere is being filled with oil because it is a good price. Nowadays, or this week, the oil price is back again on the trend. And just yesterday, the oil price increased by $2 per barrel. So the price between 59 up to $65 per barrel nowadays in the market. And therefore is a challenge. The price is a challenge. Sometimes could be affecting on the future of oil and gas. But if you control it, if the world is controlling it, then we will have something like that. As you know, the oil is a commodity. The oil is something you sell in the market. So it is subject for supply and demand. So if I have a plenty supply, low demand, the price will come down. And vice versa. If I have less supply, more demand, the price will go up. And that's exactly what happened in 2020 in March, April last year. Because of COVID, the transportation is not very good. Most of the countries stay home. The industry went a bit quiet. So there is no demand. No demand, the price went down. When the world is open and people start to move up and the economy start to work, we have the price going up. And plus many other factors affecting on the price, such as the geopolitical politics, as well as the value of the money, the value of the US dollars or the value of the rupee or any other use or euro or sterling. And also it could be affected by the opportunities practices in the future market. So the future of the market also it has an influence, and the opportunities to develop new ideas for the source of energy, as well as the discoveries of or the use of the application of renewable energy sometimes could be a threat and maybe make the price a bit difficult to grow. Other things such as the emergencies and the oil movement path, I mean political issues and any restriction on oil movement in the world, it could be affect on the price. And in case of emergencies, such as we have a big fire in a certain oil field, or maybe we have fire in a big refinery. So these are also could be affecting on the supply to the market. Therefore, remember, one of the factors affect on the future of oil and gas industry is the price. This price instability is not good. We prefer to have a stable price, such as $50 per barrel or 60 for a long time. That's better for the industry, better for the growth of the industry. If I am working with ONGC or working with Oil India, and I want to develop a reservoir, or I want to build a refinery, or I want to develop an oil wells, and the oil price is not stable, is not good for me. But if I know the oil price is stable, so I have future, and because of that I can develop. So remember, if somebody asks you what could be one of the factors affecting on the future, tell him the oil prices stability is important. That's why I brought this slide for today to mention that. The other factors for the future is I need to know I have enough reserve. I have enough oil in a place. Then I say, okay, I have future for the industry. And I'm sure if you have done petroleum engineering, you have studied reservoir engineering, and part of the reservoir they taught you about how to calculate or estimate the oil in a place, how much oil reserve. And one of the methods they use the decline trend analysis, the dB by dt, for example, to predict how much oil in a place using data from number of wells or maybe from single well analysis. So the other factor, the other element which is we need to think about if we talk about the future of oil and gas industry is how much oil do we have? We have enough? Can we get it out? Can we extract it, produce it? If the answer is yes, we have enough and we can produce it, then we have future. And therefore you need to do the reserve estimation in different ways. One of them is decline trend order, and the one of the technique, the MBE, which is the material balance equation. It's good to estimate gas reserve as well as good to estimate the oil reserve. So remember that. That's why I brought this slides here, saying to you the future of the oil and gas depending on how much oil I have, how much I can produce per day, and how much reserve I have. If I have enough reserves, commercial reserve, then I can do development. I can see feasibility. It's feasible to develop the oil industry because we have plenty oil, so we have future. Remember my seminar titled The Future of Oil and Gas Industry. So one of the factors for the future, I should make sure I have enough oil in place. And one of the way to find that, to answer that, you do the MPE, the material balance equation. And that could help you to do the estimation in this case. That estimation of oil and gas in place it pushed me, it needed from me to understand my petroleum geology, to understand how can I estimate it, and where does it locate? Is it offshore under the seawater, or is it onshore under in a certain land? And what is the structure of my oil field or reserve, oil reservoir? Is it anticline? Is it a sand lenses? Is my oil exist in a carbonate rocks, natural fractured carbonate rocks? Does it exist in sandstone reservoir? Do I have gas cap, something called the saturated oil reservoir? Do I have? I don't have any gas cap, so it needs from you that basic knowledge you have studied in the year 1 and year 2 to develop the idea of how much reserve in place and how to calculate them in this case, because that has a connection with the future of it. I'm sure you came across the way the traps, and we have different type of traps for oil in a place where we have a good accumulation there. You calculate it to find it to be economic, enough quantity to develop that area. There's enough oil in a place so I can spend some money because I can get money back again. Always remember that the oil in a place could be same principle of projects. I am doing a project, and in a project you need to think about the feasibility of the project. If I spend millions of dollars, can I get them back? And when I will get them back? What's the payback period? Because the oil and gas industry is very expensive industry. It's a money demand industry. And therefore, when you decide, you have to be careful because you're dealing with billions. And these are some of the things you need to be aware about. Here, remember, I'm talking about the reserve of oil in place, and the reserve has a connection with the future. If I have plenty oil in place, then I have future for this industry to continue. For example, if we talk about Iraq, they have plenty oil in place, and the estimation of production life is almost 105 years, 105 years. If Iraq continue producing about 4.5 million barrels per day, it will continue produce that amount for the remaining 100 years from now. So the oil in place in Iraq, for example, will not finish until we are in 2020. Maybe you have another 100 into it, so it gives you 20 almost 2,200, 2,300. So it gives you a good future in this case. So remember, one of the factors affecting on the future is how much oil in the place you have. And that needs from you to have understanding of, to calculate how much oil you have to have a good data about porosity, variability, and other factors need to look into. Again, I brought this slide to tell you that we need also to think about technology. I know there's oil under a mountain, or there's an oil under a city, or there's oil under the sea, a deep sea. Then can I reach it? Can I get it out? So if I have the technology, the answer is yes, then the future is yes. So plus, so one point, you think about how much quantity I have, if the price is stable, can I reach the oil accumulation under the mountain or under the sea or under the city? Do I have the technology of using horizontal drilling or deviated drilling, for example? If the answer yes, I have the technology, then yes, I can produce more and I give more life into my oil and gas industry, so the future will be more promising, more shiny in this case. So remember, one of the way to have future in oil and gas is to have the technology available. And the example I put for you here, I talk about the technology we are using. There is different way of technology for drilling to get oil out of a place. Now, because of the advanced technology, to get oil out of places is become very almost, I can say, easy, or not easy, but it is possible to get it out. Therefore, because you have technology of offshore, onshore, deviated, horizontal well, all these will help me in getting things out of this. I bring this slide and this slide to tell you that we need to have a good understanding for our reservoir. I cannot talk about the future of oil and gas industry as an engineer, and I have no idea about the reservoir of my oil field. Is it water derived? Is it a gas carb derived? Is it a water aquifer size big or small? Shall I drill vertically or horizontally? So is my permeability is value enough to keep the oil moving inside the rocks according to my Darcy equation, for example? These are important. You cannot talk about the future and you have no any basic knowledge or any background knowledge. So I'm saying here in this example, we should have a good knowledge, a good understanding for our reservoir to decide that we have enough oil and therefore we have enough uh, a future. I don't know about my timing. Tell me when my time is running out. You tell me, please.
So it's 12:09 here.
This is 12:09.
12:09, yeah.
And I should finish by 12:30.
So 1:30.
1:30. So I have plenty of time.
Yes,
I have almost 1 hour, yeah, almost 1 hour.
almost 1 hour.
Yeah. So that is, I go back again. I said, if you two think about the future, and our seminar title is about future, you have to have a good understanding for your reservoir. What they call the deriving mechanism. The way I can get the oil out of my field. Is it has enough energy in it? Water derived, gas carb, dissolved gas, and so on. So for example, this example of a gas carb reservoir, where the energy play important part from the gas expansion. I can use that in the future later on and build up the pressure in the gas cap by have something called gas injection. These are important. You cannot talk about the future of oil and gas industry and you don't have the enough understanding for your field or for your reservoir. And that's something you need to keep in. The other things about putting oil in a place, putting the oil in the market and make money out of it and to create a future for me is the way I drill and the way I complete my production well. This slide in front of you talk about typical completed producing oil well. Typical completed producing oil well. So I reach the oil sand or the formation, or sometimes they call the pay zone, and I'm starting producing from a well completed by putting the tubing and the packer, the casing, the cementing, the perforation, whatever you name it. And I got this a green arrow, that means I'm producing. If it's perfect and nice, no problems, then yes, I have oil in the market, which will give me a good future as well. I can control how much I produce. And I can control my choke size to put how much oil in a place. So these are things about the future. It has a future as long as we have a good technology and use it in a proper way. And that's important to keep in mind. Again, these slides to tell us something like the completion, whatever, so I pass a bit faster on it. Again, I repeat myself here that you have to have a good understanding for your reservoir. You have to do the right way of drilling, vertical or deviated or horizontal. And then you have to have a good surface facilities on the surface. Flow line, valves, a flow meter, separators, how to deal with the produced gas, how to deal with the water, produced water, where should I send my oil to? This is also important. The surface equipment is also important. I should not make any waste. In other words, every single barrel of my oil should be captured and used in a proper way. Every single cubic feet of gas coming to the separator, I should capture it. And I think I should make use of it. Minimum flaring, for example. Surface facilities, if you are a good field engineer and you think about the future of oil and gas, I try to make zero flaring. I will not flare the gas. Totally wrong in certain countries, they have flares in the oil field. Why should I flare a gas? Gas is money. Gas is a source of energy. Why should I flare it? I should have a good production facilities. They call them surface facilities. And part of it is to capture the gas and to sell to a market, make money out of it, save the energy. I can build a power station, electrical power station, using that gas, or I can use that gas for petrochemicals in order to produce the plastic industry and so on. So this is the answer. The other part, remember, when I talk about the future, I talked about reservoir, gas cap, water derived mechanism, whatever, and also I don't forget my surface production facilities. It's quite important to keep that in mind. The way I store my oil, storage as well, the way I store it, the way I keep it in my field or my storage area as well is important. I should make zero evaporation. Nowadays, people use something called the float roof tank. Float roof tank. And the idea of float roof tank is to minimize the chances of evaporation. Because for safety reason, for environmental reason, also for economy reason. And that's economy reason, or keep the oil under my control, that will give me a good future for this industry. If I don't care, and my oil spills everywhere and evaporate everywhere, then the people talk about me. They say you are a bad company, you are a bad industry. You don't care about the environment, and therefore you will have no future. So the way we store it, the way we handle it, the way we treat it, for example, here, if you read this word, heater, treater. So also the oil, when it comes to place, I need to treat it in a proper way to make sure it will be very good for the customer when it goes to a refinery. This is important to keep in mind. So the future depends on geology understanding, reservoir understanding, how much oil in place understanding, and the way we produce it, production. So these are important. Reservoir, drilling techniques, the technology we use in drilling, the way we complete our well. If we produce the oil to the surface, then our separators and so on. If we store it in a tank, then do we treat it or not? So all these are important to give a good name for the oil industry, to have a good future as well, and to save the amount of the oil produced from getting to the drainage area. So the more the technology used in a proper way, the better for the future of oil and gas. This is the way I look at it. I look at to the future of the oil and gas from the technical side. The technical side, the technology side, including exploration, drilling, well completion, producing well, and the surface facilities I have on the surface. Are they good quality? Are they under control? Did I use my technology to choose them to make sure that the losses of the oil and gas will be minimized, and therefore I have a better future, longer life, and also the entire world will say, okay, you're doing very well, you are not damaging the environment, so you have a good future into our industry. Remember that. So the future of oil and gas, it depends on our behavior, it depends on technology, it depends on our understanding for the reservoir in terms of geology, reservoir derived mechanism, drilling, well completion, surface facilities. And after that, storage and the transportation until we reach this crude oil into a refinery to produce our fuel for cars and flights and so on. Kerosene, gasoline, gas oil, and so on. LPG for our cooking at home, the many things. So I brought this sketch of a three-phase horizontal separator just to say that we need a good technology in order to make sure it is suitable for us. to extend the life of an oil field, to give us a future, I need to continue producing. And one of the reasons for that, one of the technique for increasing production, and I'm sure maybe they taught you in the university about the enhanced oil recovery, the EOR. So the nature gave us some pressure in our oil reservoir. The nature gave us certain amount of oil in a certain oil field. When I start to produce it, that pressure started to be depleted, production rate come down, so I need to produce more the answer to produce more, use the EOR, Enhanced Oil Recovery. As a technique, we use it in order to extend the life of a producing reservoir. Here in the graph in front of you, the y-axis talk about the production, how much being produced in millions of barrels, and the x-axis it talk about the number of years, the time. So if I just depend on a primary recovery on nature, I produce only this brownish area, but I still have oil in place. So I use something called secondary EOR, secondary enhanced oil recovery, which could be water injection to get more out of the oil. It gave me this a blue triangle. Then I said I need more oil. The water is not enough to take it out. I use the tertiary methods, the third stage. It gave me the green area. So every time I'm extending the life, 20% plus 25% plus 15%. My aim is to get more oil from my reservoir to give a future for the oil and gas industry. So the future of oil and gas industry also depending not only on production, no, it depends on how can I increase the production? How can I maintain the production? So the future now is depending on reservoir, understanding how much oil in place, supply and demand, and the oil price. What if my surface facilities that will make minimum losses? Also, how can I extend the life of a depleted reservoir? A reservoir with no energy, but I put the energy into it. I put the energy into it by something called enhanced oil recovery. So the enhanced oil recovery is the intervention of the engineer in the field, in nature. So I do water injection, the engineer does it. I do gas injection, I do CO2 flooding. I use polymer for removing the oil in place. I'm injecting polymer. I'm injecting surfactant. I'm using steam or hot water to get the oil, heavy oil out of the rocks. All these are the method of EOR. So if somebody asks you, what is the benefit of EOR? A simple answer is to extend the life of a producing reservoir. Not an oil well, the whole reservoir will be increase the life of it. So it has a future. It has a future. Because if I don't do that EOR, I will stop into this brownish area. And I finish. After 30 years, I finish. I need to extend, I need future. So I say the blue area, secondary recovery. Secondary means I use water injection, sometimes also gas injection. Then I finish. So, but I need more. I use CO2, tertiary, or sometimes I use polymer. India is very famous in using the chemical EOR, the polymer, especially polymer and surfactant. CO2 is very much technology to think about mixing environment protection with oil production. So I capture CO2 and I inject inside the reservoir as part of contribution toward the global warming, and they call the carbon tax. And I'm sure some of you heard about the carbon tax and the pressure on certain countries to reduce the emission to the atmosphere, emission of CO2, because CO2 has a bad impact on the environment, as we name it, the greenhouse effect and the greenhouse gases. And I'm sure some of the audience who is listening to me now, they know this quite well, and they have an idea about connection between CO2, EOR, and environmental parameters. CO2 also they call supercritical CO2 used in producing oil. So this is future. This technology, this idea gives future. Remember, my seminar is about future. Yes, we have future for the oil and gas industry if we use the right technology, if we use the right operation methods to get oil place. This was secondary, the blue curve is done by something called water injection or water flooding, sometimes same idea. And I brought this slide in this presentation just to tell that it's part of secondary recovery, injecting the water inside the oil reservoir to sweep and to push the oil out through the producing well. And by this case, I'm decreasing the production and extending the life of my oil field. So I have future. So this secondary and also CO2 called tertiary recoveries are, the aim of them is to extend the life of my reservoir, to put more oil in a place, to put more oil in the market, to take more oil from the place. And that will give a good length for the life and a better future. If you have heavy oil in a place and the heavy oil cannot move easily, you say, can I heat it up to reduce viscosity and to make it movable? The answer is yes. So you generate steam in the surface, steam generator, and you push that steam, pump it inside the oil field, oil reservoir, oil field, to melt and to reduce the oil, the heavy oil, and to make it movable. I think in India you have some steam injection projects as well in certain parts of India, and that will give you a good chance to produce more oil, again to give you a good chance for a better future for the oil and gas industry. Even the steam in certain countries now, they use the solar heating, the heat from the sun, to make a steam rather than burning fuel. So another way of looking after the activities of environment. I go back to this slide and I mentioned CO2 ER can extend the life and produce more oil from my field. The CO2 could be done by just CO2 on its own or by something called CO2 WAG, water with CO2. So this again is part of our new technology in order to get more oil from place and to extend the life, let's say WAG, water alternate gas or CO2 gas. I'll not go into details about it, I just mention here to you that we can, as engineers, extend the future of an oil field by using the right technology and the correct operation procedure. If somebody came to me and say your oil field is dry, I say not dry yet. I can get oil out of it, maybe using CO2, maybe using steam, maybe using chemicals. And that's future. It's a future in the oil and gas. As I said to you, the future of oil and gas is depending on how much gas I have in the field, how much oil I have in the field. And as you know, in terms of gas, sometimes we have something called associated gas, and sometimes we can name it as a free gas reservoir. And that is also important to have understanding on that. And that's important to keep in mind. I brought this slide in order to tell you that how much certain countries they have plenty oil in their region, and I'm sure they play important parts in the future of the oil and gas industry. I cannot say, for example, Bangladesh or India or Pakistan will have a big impact on oil and gas. Difficult to say that because they don't have enough reserve. They are customers. They buy oil and gas. But the countries having that reserve, as you see here, we have in the Arabian Gulf or the Gulf area near Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, Iran, and so on. We have plenty oil, both onshore and offshore. So they have a good, I can say, control on the future of oil and gas industry because of that huge amount of oil and gas they have in place. In a simple statistics, they said about 66%, 2/3 of the oil and gas in the world existing in this region, in the region of the Gulf area, Middle East. And therefore, they have an important impact on the future of the oil and gas. Again, same map. For example, this greenish area, green spot, they name it as the Ghawar oil field. Ghawar oil field exists in the eastern province of Saudi Arabia. It's a major oil field, a giant oil field, with billions and billions of oil in place inside it. They said about 75 billion, up to 80 billion barrel of oil in that place. That's a huge amount. It has a good future to continue. At the same point in the offshore side, they have the gas field, which belong to Qatar, and it's a giant gas field, the largest gas field in the world. It has more than 1,000 trillion cubic feet of gas, almost 950 trillion cubic feet of gas, and that's a huge amount. So this has an important part in the future of oil and gas industry. Remember, my seminar with you is about the future of oil and gas and the challenges. To tell the future, if we use the right technology, the right techniques in getting the oil and gas from the place, and the right way to operate our jobs. Another example in the region is about UAE, United Arab Emirates, Abu Dhabi. Again, plenty of oil there. And I'm sure some of you, they know that some of your colleagues, maybe father or brothers or neighbors, they work in the Gulf area in the oil industry. And they know that work in UAE, or maybe they're working in Saudi Arabia, or maybe working in Kuwait. in Iraq as well. There's so many people from India, engineers from India, technicians from India, working in the oil industry in the Middle East area. Thousands of them. So they are contributing for the future of the oil and gas, and they are very well respected people. Most of the Indian engineers are very much respected and very good on demand. They're demanding them because they are honest and they do work hard. So these examples I brought from the Middle East to tell you that these countries play an important part in the reserve, and therefore they have a big impact on the future of oil and gas. This is Iraq again. South of Iraq has plenty oil in it, as well as the north of Iraq. So it's Middle East again. This is Qatar, the largest gas field in the world. They call the North Gas Field. It is shared between Qatar and Iran on the other side. It's an offshore. Iran, they name it Pars, and Qatar, they name it North Gas Field. It has a huge amount of gas, and they produce more than 150 billion cubic feet per day. So that tell us that certain parts of the world play important part in the future of oil and gas because they are producer. India, China, Pakistan, Bangladesh are consumer. So we have producer and consumer, and between them, they can agree on the future of the oil and gas industry. I'm sure if you follow news and if you do petroleum economics, you understand how important that collaboration between a producer and consumer for the future of this industry. And I'm sure you thought about OPEC plus, OPEC plus. So the OPEC group talking with the non-OPEC groups such as Russia, Moscow, Mexico, to agree on how much they put oil in the market to protect the future of this oil and gas industry. So that's keep in mind the future of oil and gas is depending on how much oil in place you have and also how much you produce, how do you transport it into the market, what are the technology are you using, how can I make the oil price stable. All these factors has a connection with the future of oil and gas. Oil reserve, oil production rate, location, transportation, geopolitics, oil prices, technology, the operations, all these are factors affecting on the future of oil and gas. If the oil and gas will remain active and alive, I'm sure it has a future. And therefore, you will have a future to get a job, especially if you are a student. When you graduate and you get your bachelor, then you have a certain chance to get a job somewhere else because it has a future. By nature, by other factors, the oil being distributed in different ways, but luckily most of it is happened in the Middle East. As I said to you, more than 66% of the oil is there. For example, in Iran, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, United Arab Emirates, Kuwait. These things I put in blue color here in this slide. These are the Middle East areas. And if you put a total of the oil there, will be about 66% of the oil of the world are located in these countries in the Middle East. So they have a big role or a big say about the future of oil and gas. Also, we have oil in Venezuela and Canada, heavy oils, Russia, Libya, and Nigeria. So these countries, I can say 10 countries in the world, 10 of them, are playing an important part in the future of oil and gas because they have a huge amount of accumulation, the reserve. So the future also depending on the way they put on the same table here, I move very fast. So we have plenty oil, to be honest with you. And Middle East is about 61% or 66% actually. Yeah, recent statistics data. This is an old data, 2008. But the recent data from BBC, 66% of oil in place exists in the Middle East area, which is Kuwait, Iraq, Iran, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and so on. And that table tells me that we have enough oil to think about the future. It has a future. Yes, we hear sometimes media and journals and TVs and public saying that the oil will finish one day. Yes, it finished one day, but doesn't finish tomorrow. It will not finish tomorrow. No. It will finish after so many years, 50 to up to 100 years. So it has a future. And from now until 50 years, future-wise, we'll get some kind of source of energy, another replacement or alternatives. So people talk about now what we call them the non-conventional, conventional and non-conventional source of oil and gas. So the non-conventional talk about shale gas. There is some field made mainly from shale. Shale in geology, you are AAPG, it could be named as the source rocks. Source of oil started in shale. So we can sometimes extract gas from shale by what they call the fracturing of the shale, frac of shale gas or shale oil. There's also a huge amount of gas exists in a frozen way called the hydrate, especially offshore. There's a few locations in India, I think, near Chennai, offshore side. They have good, and also south of India as well. In the offshore, they have hydrate accumulation. Again, there's a new area, a good area to understand how to get oil out, how to get the gas out of it, the hydrate. So if we can get it, we can extend the life of the oil and gas, and therefore we have better future. The hydrates, I'm sure some of you know how it happens. Usually it's a mix between water molecules with methane or ethane. Under high pressure, low temperature, they form a spongy, icy accumulation, like a piece of ice or sponge. Once you heat it up, it will change the gas coming out. So this also could be source of energy. Sand oil, again, the oil, heavy oil exists in sands. We need to extraction processes. So another source of energy, you can say, non-conventional. Heavy oil, nowadays there is big attention for heavy oil. And even certain universities start to teach more about heavy oil reservoir, how they can develop them. And the deep sea drilling as well. And I'm sure maybe some of you have seen that movie in the Gulf of Mexico, The Deep Horizon. If you have seen that movie, a cinema movie, The Deep Horizon, they talk about the problem happened to British Petroleum in Gulf of Mexico. The leak and the explosion happened in the offshore well due to blowout preventer didn't work very well. That's a deep sea example, a deep sea example. So these are give you an idea that people or the world is looking for more oil to extend, to expand and to extend the life of the reservoir, the life of the oil in a place. To tell us, to tell you as a young generation, as students in universities, that there's a future for the oil and gas. Yes, there is challenges. There is challenges, a big challenges, but we need to stand to that challenges and put a future in the oil and gas. So these are future. Example of this thing I put in on this slide, talk about the future. We have another source of energy. Again, people talk about the peak oil, how much we produce, how much left behind. There's a theory about, they say you have to come to the peak, not much oil left. The answer, yes, we have plenty oil left. I don't believe in these things. Yes, there is a challenge. You see here, the green part is the future part in this slide. The black line is the production. They say to us, you are producing from little amount of oil, you have no much future. But I would say we could have a better future if we have better technology, a better way to operate, minimum amount of waste, and we use our fuel in a proper way, we can extend the life of the oil and gas future. There's new discoveries, there's more thinking of heavy oil, there's more thinking about shale gas, about sand oil. So that will be extending the life of the oil and gas market. And therefore we have a reasonable future in this case. This is the challenge here, the last statement here. If you find it, some of them say, you are consuming 5 barrels every day, but you're only finding 1 barrel as a new discovery. And that means that it is going to finish. The answer, yes. I'm not saying the oil will never finish. No, the oil someday will finish. But the oil not finishing tomorrow. It needs some number of years. The estimated average years of oil industry to demolish between 60 to 70 years from now. They will talk about 2080, 2090. So as a new generation, as a young generation, you are a young generation. Most of you are students. Yes, you have future. And you can extend the life by using a better enhanced oil recovery or finding a new discoveries such as hydrates in south of India and also in the Chennai offshore area. There's billions and billions of gas, and India exists in hydrate formation. And there's some studies on it and also some working with, we will try to get it. So you have future if we have a good technology and a good thinking. So that's the question. Are we running out of oil? No. I'm a professor in petroleum engineering. I have more than 38 years of experience, or maybe 40 years, because I graduated in 1980. So I have 41 years of oil industry experience. both industry and academia and research. We are not running out of oil. If we use the right technology, if we use the right methods of operations, we can extend the life of the oil in market and get better life into it. So it is more information we have, more understanding we have, more expansion we have, better technology we can use, that will give us a good future. Again, I repeat myself. I'm not saying the oil will never finish one day. No, it will finish. It is more we produce, the less will be left behind. So we need new discoveries. But if we use the right technology and the right way of operation, less waste, minimize the waste, use other sources of energy to help us, then yes, the life of oil and gas could be longer and longer. I mentioned to you earlier that the oil market, the oil price is a factor as well. If we have a better oil price, give me more stability, give me a better chance for development. Mr. Singh, do I have plenty time or how many minutes I have left?
Sir, approx 30 minutes we have.
Sorry?
Approx 30 minutes we have, sir.
Okay, half an hour. Okay, I will do my best to finish in time. So we have to think about this. You have to make a balance between how much reserve you have, how much you produce out of it. I should not produce too much and then I waste it. I produce according to the market need. And that's important to extend the life of the oil in the place or oil in the market and give you better future. So think about the market need. Think about your quota in OPEC, for example. Think about how much your production per day you're consuming, so on, so on. So quite important to think about that one. I give example here, just example I brought from the UAE, because I am consulted with the ADNOC. And I know so many people from India also work with Abu Dhabi in oil and gas industry. So the example I give is how to calculate the life in oil and place. For example, this example only in UAE, the estimated life of the oil industry is 106 years. And that tells us they have a good ability to maintain the market. So the way you produce, the way you are using technology, how much you put in the market, how much you consume, it gives you a good future for the oil and gas industry. Remember, my seminar is about the future. And we hear in the news here and there, we have no future. No. As a petroleum engineer, I said that we have a future. Not only for myself, for my children, and also for my grandchildren. Plenty times we have in order to benefit like that. So I mentioned the sand oil, heavy oil, the way we are reaching our, what we call it, the unconventional reservoirs, such as the shale rocks and so on. I do encourage you, if you are students and you want to do a master degree or PhD, think about the unconventional. Think about shale gas. Think about the hydrate reservoir. Hydrate reservoir is a lovely or very new, I can say quite a new approach in oil and gas. It's only about, I can say it's about 10 to 15 years. 15 years that people start thinking, called the hydrate reservoir and hydrate accumulation. It's good because it will be the future. Shale gas is good. The deep sea, the drilling is a good subject to think about. So sometimes the future also depends on you. you are the future, because most of I'm sure I can say most of my audience now, I have 133 people listening to me on this platform. I'm sure most of you are young generation, so you are the future. You are the future, and therefore think about how can I contribute to the future of oil and gas industry by doing research, by thinking about a best way of extraction oil, a best way of consuming oil, think about environment and so on. So you are the future as well. I gave some examples here about the non-conventional, the shale oil or the shale gas, in order to get something out of it. Fracturing of it or the horizontal drilling in shale sometimes could be helping you to put more gas in place in the market, and that's a future. So we have different views actually, different, and I cannot say everybody agree with me. No, no, impossible to make everybody agree on one point. We say in Arabic, إرضاء الناس غاية لا تدرك. To make everybody agree with you is impossible. To make everybody agree with you is an impossible task. But we have different views. My view that yes, we have a future in the oil and gas industry because of the new discoveries in the non-conventional, and because of the technology used and the way we can develop our technology to get the oil and the gas. For example, shale gas now, therefore, in America, it became a big market actually. Shale gas. All these red spots are shale gas. Shale gas was unconventional source rocks. That's an example of. These are came recently in 1996 and 1980s or 1970s or 1890s, they will start to think about the shale gas. So that's example of the future, the gas industry as well. In the old days, most of the countries are burning the GOR. They take only the oil. Now, most of the countries say stop burning, stop flaring the GOR. That's an example of future. The condensate could be used as well. So we have future, but we have challenges. The challenges is the technology and the procedure of our life, the way we do it. Yes, people, they need the oil, and also they need the for their market. We need also good equipment, drilling and pumps. I will pass very fast on these. So tell me, what is the future of oil and gas in our region? If I talk about Middle East, they have future. One condition, they should have a good customers, good buyers, and they should use the right procedure for operation as well as for production. They should in somehow control how much they produce and manage the pressure of their reservoirs. Otherwise, they could be losing that. So there are challenges. Challenges in the oil price. If the oil price is not stable, it's difficult for me to maintain a good industry with non-stable oil price. Technology is costing money nowadays. By the way, the older the reservoir, the more the expensive to produce oil out of it. The younger the reservoir, the easy, the cheaper. Older reservoir, it needs for me maintaining the pressure, so I have to do water injection, gas injection, polymers, surfactant, and many other ways. That's costing money. Need more treatment. Old reservoir give me a big water cut. I need to remove the water cut. So it makes the job a bit expensive. So that's one of the challenges. So one of the challenges now is the most of the reservoir are getting old reservoir, very old, very aged, and they need more money to put into them to produce better. Difficulties of the market, the customers, geopolitics, and so on. Threats, again, the threats from other source of energy. We will talk about solar energy, wind energy, biomass, nuclear energy, and so on. So these also challenges, which could be put pressure on the oil and gas industry future. The oil price, difficult to predict, but I prefer to be a stable price. Stability will give you a better future for oil and gas industry. And that stability depends on many factors, as I mentioned in the slide earlier for you. I talk about more than 10 factors affecting on the oil price. I mentioned that to you in my early slides. I need from time to time to evaluate my oil and gas industry projects by using the SWOT analysis. Where is my strength? Where is my weakness? Where is my opportunity, threats? So I encourage you, and I'm sure some of you in the university, they taught them about how do they do SWOT analysis for a given projects. So if you haven't done it, if you haven't heard about it, try to read about the SWOT analysis. So these few points I put for you, affecting on the future. Remember, my seminar is about the future of the oil and gas industry. So think about the international oil market. You are working with oil company producing oil. You are engineer in ONGC or in Oil India company, and you're producing oil from certain fields. So think about the market, local and international, in terms of competing, in terms of supplying, and so on. Think about who is your customer. Is my customer a state country or a private industry? Do I sell my oil to the Indian government, or I sell it to Tata as a private sector? These are also important to think about the future in terms of prices and in terms of consumers. Who is competing with me? Other countries? Is OPEC is my competitor? And how much OPEC put oil in the market and how much I produce? And the new era, the new ideas I have to come with. In terms of I'm producing oil from a shell or from a sand. I'm using CO2 in order to produce oil as enhancer recovery. So important to think about that one. Some countries, such as Middle East countries, their economy is depending on oil, which is again a risky thing, very risky. And I'm sure now you heard about some countries around the world, they said we need to have to think about other sources of economy support. We cannot only depend on oil as the only source of my economy. Some countries such as now Saudi Arabia, UAE, they are started planning or started already thinking about other sources of economy apart from the oil and gas. So these are things need to think about the future and challenges. Future as well about job opportunities. I'm studying 4 years in UPES, and I got a bachelor in Petroleum Engineering. I celebrate the graduation day with the gown. I'm happy. I take lovely photographs with my family, with my teachers. Do I have a job? Can I get a job? Who will give me a job? So that the question come. So I have to think about opportunities for a job. And that also has a future connections. Yes, there are opportunities for most of you, hopefully. Continue. If you are a student, haven't finished your bachelor, continue. Work hard. Do a nice research. Come with new ideas. That will help you as well later on for a job searching. So the new graduated engineers, again, they are the future of the oil and gas industry. Training needs sometimes. Is my bachelor enough? Sometimes I say no. Develop yourself. Have other skills beside your bachelor to get a future for yourself. Do communication skills. Learn how to do presentation. Learn how to do IT and computer programming to support the oil and gas simulation, petrol simulation or reservoir simulation. Think about the new ideas and new applications. Develop your knowledge. Learn other language sometime. Yes, I can speak Hindi or Urdu and English. Can I speak French as well? Can I add Arabic into it? These also could be useful for you in that terms. Do courses on customer services, on communication skills, on report writings. These useful things as well to support your future. And the economy in the region, of course, you choose the region with unhealthy, stable economy that will have better future. Technology, the most advanced technology could be helpful to be used nowadays to develop the oil fields, such as the smart and the intelligent oil wells and intelligent oil reservoirs. Think about sensors and other ways of measuring the data. Research can give future. Think about, I remember to you the importance of environment. CO2 is a good way of research, enhance or recovery. Make sure how can I make the flow out of the reservoir is assured. So skin factor, formation damage, stimulation, and so on, a good area. Shale gas, maybe it's a good area as well to think about it as a future supply for gas. Understand the shale reservoir and understand the shale behavior. I mentioned dehydrate to you. I mentioned you have in India, especially on offshore, you have a lot of hydrate accumulation. And up to now, nobody come with the idea how to reduce it. They tried, but they failed. Think about it for the future. The subsea, the pipelines, the deep sea, the heavy oil. There is plenty heavy oil around the world. Nobody has been extracted yet because it's difficult and expensive. So can you come with a new idea to extract it with a cheaper money? The EOR, think about it, because EOR can make the life of production a bit longer. So that's something also you need to think about it as a future. I mentioned optimization. Optimize, minimize the waste, minimize the burning of a gas, minimize the waste of oil, minimize the leaks, minimize the evaporation. And please use computer modeling, simulation will give you a good future for the oil and gas. It's a big subject, but important subject. It makes politics with economy, with technology, with many other things you need to think about them. That's important. We have challenges, and you agree with me now. I'm sure you agree with me about the renewable energy. People talk about, I don't need to use oil and gas to generate electricity or to operate a submarine. I use nuclear power. It's possible. Just actually yesterday or 2 days ago in UAE, in Abu Dhabi, they operate a nuclear station and generate 1 megawatt of electricity. Abu Dhabi is an oil country, but they use nuclear as well. Hydrogen energy, both a blue hydrogen and a green hydrogen. Again, it became an important source of energy. There's people talk about cars running on hydrogen. There's some cars already now on the road using hydrogen as a fuel. Biomass, India should be very good in biomass. Very good, because India has so many plants, trees, and food or agriculture waste could be used as a good source of energy. Geothermal, hot water from the ground, gravity energy. Can we use it for certain kind of application? Wind and solar energies. So these are tell us we have few challenges that saying to us, think about your oil to be finished one day, and therefore important to keep in mind. Finally, my conclusion that the oil and gas will never finish, will never come to zero availability in the market. No, it will remain as a source of energy. Now it could be source number one, maybe in 50, 70 years from now, it could be source number two. But it remains as a source of energy. And therefore it has a future. It is in certain countries is an important source of income in the region of Middle East, our region, I mean, of the Middle East. Kuwait, Iraq, their economy, 90% of their economy depending on oil income. So it's the future of a nation sometimes depending on oil. And the challenges I think on the future could be political instability due to political issues, environmental issues, social issue, technology not used in the proper way. So these are could be affecting, and therefore my final conclusion that I started with you today to talk about the future of oil and gas industry and the challenges. I try to cover these slides as much as I can to meet the title of my seminar. And these are the things you keep in mind. And therefore, I need to come back again and thank AAPG and thank UPES chapter students to give me this opportunity to talk to you. Yes, you wake me up early morning today. I was sleeping, but never mind. It's good to wake up early. So thank you very much for this. And I hope I deliver the message for you.
Yes, sir, the message was conveyed to everyone. Thank you so much, sir. The session is now open for questions. The attendees are requested to send the questions in the chat box on their screens.
How many minutes remaining for my session? 20 minutes remaining for my session.
So 15 minutes are left for the session.
7 minutes. Okay.
15 minutes.
Is 11 minutes? 15 minutes. 1-5.
Yes.
So this will be remain for the questions. If there's any question or chat, or even if you can't talk directly, I don't mind. You can unmute yourself or unmute you, and if you want to ask.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, my friend.
It was a really enlightening session, sir. But I have a doubt when we speak of shale. One of your slides said that shale is the future of our industry. But when we talk about shale, we definitely get into the conversation of hydraulic fracturing, right? And Most of us would agree that hydraulic fracturing is not environment friendly. How do we tackle that, sir? Also, its alternatives. Then why not having research in the field of renewable energy? Have environment friendly solution to it.
Okay. Because the shell, I agree with you. Shell, one of the challenges for shell frac is the issue of environment, because they use huge amount of water mixed with sand, and they pump it inside the shell rocks to fracture it. And that could be a challenge for environment. I agree with you. Then it is your job or your thinking of as a young engineer. Can you come with an idea to them? Can you tell the shell gas companies, instead of using this shale gas technology, instead of using only water for a frac, can we think about something else to minimize the environmental impact? That's a challenge for research. One of the ways they do it nowadays is now one of the way to avoid that fracking issue, they do horizontal drilling. Here we have horizontal drilling. Horizontal drilling, they think it could be a reasonable way to avoid pumping huge amount of water inside the shell, and then we lose water from the rivers, from the sea, damaging the environment and so on. So the shell is non-conventional. It is not. I'm not saying it is. It has a connection with the future, because it will extend the future of the oil and gas. The other part of your question is about renewable energy. Why not? Can we develop more ideas about application of renewable energy? Can we think about solar, wind energy? I'm not saying no. I'm not saying no. You can. There is no problem in making the oil and gas energy working together with the solar energy, with the wind energy. I know, for example, in Oman, Muscat, Oman, they do steam injection, huge amount of steam. In Venezuela as well, in Canada as well. So how can they make steam? They use solar heat to generate steam. That's a combination of renewable energy with the conventional energy. Use steam by using the heat from the sun to produce it. North Sea in Aberdeen with BP Petroleum, they need electricity. So they have wind turbine with the platform, the electricity from wind. So they are also using renewable energy to support their conventional production. So I agree with you. We can pay more attention for renewable energy as well as, because the entire world is growing, and the energy need is also growing. So we can work together, hand in hand, renewable energy with the oil and gas energy. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, sir. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more comments or anything you need to add? Otherwise, I will take my breakfast now.
So we extend our deepest gratitude to you for such an enlightening, informative, and engaging session. We got a complete cognizance of the challenges that have been in the oil and gas industry, and the objectives that we learned today have certainly strengthened our knowledge. May I now invite Mr. Ashutosh Mathur, Vice President, UPES AAPG Student Chapter, to extend heartfelt gratitude on behalf of UPES AAPG Student Chapter.
Thank you.
Greetings, everyone. I, Ashutosh, co-convener and vice president of UPES AAPG Student Chapter, would like to thank Dr. Hussain for sharing his valuable experience and insights. It is our pleasure to meet sir, and I hope everyone present here may have learned something. I would like to thank all the participants and the committee members for joining us here. Once again, thank you all for being a part of this amazing session. Have a good day and thank you.
Thank you very much for everybody, for you as organizer, and also I thank the participant for the listening and contribution. I don't know if you can later on email me the record of this session, if you don't mind.
Surely, sir. Surely.
I think you have my email,
Yes, sir.
and that could be good for me as well. So I thank you again. Thank for the AAPG and thank for UPES. Hopefully, when Corona is over, we visit you and we see you there in the university one day. You never know, maybe next year.
Definitely, sir. We'll
sometime.
be glad to host you again.
Come to Daradan again. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. The guest
Thank
lecture
you.
is now concluded, but the excitement of Crust'21 doesn't end yet. We
Thank
have
you.
our international technical quiz series, Enigma, today at 3:30 p.m. So be sure to tune in and give it your best. Thank you so much.
Participants, you can now leave the session. Thank you so much for attending the guest lecture.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Shall I leave as well and say thank you?
Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
So I'm leaving the meeting. Thank you very much for the opportunity. I'm expecting from you an email with the record. Wish you all the best and very good luck for you in the future.
Thank you so
Bye-bye.
much, sir.